I had seen, my neighbor was a writer for the Lansing State Journal for dance, and she invited me to see Riverdance, and I was involved. I'd been doing ballet since I was 3, and we started with IDCL. There, I think we had O'Hare in East Lansing, but that was it. And we started with Peggy and Mary at St. Mary's Church, I think.
Was that the St. Mary's in Williamston or one in Lansing?
Lansing. Yeah, and I remember my grandpa was like super Lutheran at the time, and he was so upset that I was doing Irish dance at a Catholic church. And it was really low key. It was like I learned 1, 2, 3s and 7s, and then I was just thrown right into like the choreography. And then before we even had a show where I was involved, John started giving us lessons at St. Mary's.
And that's John Heinzman.
Yeah. And he made the mistake of thinking, I don't think he realized that like me and my cousin were beginners, because we just jumped right to the advanced reel. Because we had ballet, so we had like a little bit of, I guess maybe it was easier for us. So he got really mad when we didn't get the steps right away. And my cousin quit after that. And I'm so sad she quit, because she missed like the best of it. You know, like IDCL was like so cool. But yeah, my sister joined also at the time. I think I was 12 and she was 8. And I'm pretty sure we started performing with them right when we were officially part of Heinzman too, once John got set up. So I was only at St. Mary's for like 2 months, and then I don't know where we had our practices after that, but I know I was taking like regular lessons over at that studio on Cedar Street. I can't remember what it was called. But I think the first performance I did with them was Gaylord. And that was always fun because we got that hotel suite and we got to swim, and it was the first time I went to a fish fry. So I sort of like learned about Lent and like everything that goes along with that through IDCL actually. And I want to say one of the first dances we did, or I learned, was Tabash and Boil the Breakfast Early, which are still my favorites. Like, because I know, Megan sometimes uses the old music and choreography. Yeah, so Gaylord was really fun. I want to say the second year that we went there, they were complaining because they couldn't see us. And so they were like, we need to get you guys like lifted. And they took 6 of those, their rackety lunch tables, and duct taped them together. So A, like there were all these little ridges everywhere, and B, it wasn't even enough space to dance. And very quickly we were like, oh, like someone could fall off. And they were like, oh, we'll just get you bouncers. And so we had these big guys at the edge of each table that were standing there in case we fell off. After that, I was like, well, I guess I can dance anywhere now that I've danced on duct taped together lunch tables. It was a church we danced at every year in Gaylord. So I remember there being like, we would stay for 1 or 2 nights, and there would be a main thing at a church or a VFW, I can't remember.
Knights of Columbus Hall, was it always there?
Yeah, and there was always be a guy that was like graduating from like priest school or something, or minister. I don't know what.
Seminary.
See, I didn't grow up with that. So yeah, we would always be there to celebrate that, but we would also dance at the school out there. And there may have been another place, but I feel there were always a couple performances. And that was like a big highlight of the St. Patrick's Day season. But yeah, I'll always remember the tables. There was always the fish fry. We would eat in between. But I remember in the evenings, once we were all done, we would swim. That was a big deal that they had the pool. Gosh, I remember was it somebody's suite that was always open? Maybe it was McCartney's. They had a suite where they would all stay. And I remember going back and forth to that room a lot because it had like a kitchen and it was like a big deal. But yeah, I just remember a lot of swimming, and I don't remember specific games, but I remember that we played a lot of like random games that I didn't play with my friends at school, like charades. But yeah, Gaylord, I just remember the pool and getting to stay up late. Yeah. I just remember it being fancy and the suite being a big deal, and they were so close to the pool. So whatever hotel it was fancy for me. Yeah, I remember also we always would try to choreograph to like Riverdance or Lord of the Dance, whatever was like popular. It was Warriors, that song. It took us forever to figure out how to start on time, and we finally figured it out. It was like the beginning was like an 8-2-3 or something. Like you had to start on the 3. But I remember us doing like a lot of pretty grown up like problem solving with the music and things. And then there was another dance called The Green, and it was like a French Canadian dance. And so it was like Irish dance timing for the first half, and then all of a sudden it went into this like French Canadian like polka or something, and it had like 9 beats, so we had to like do our 8 count and then throw in a clap, and that took us like a whole day to figure that out, and we were about to trash it, and then we figured it out. But yeah, it was some impressive stuff for us being kids. I mean, Peggy and Mary always kept things together, but eventually by the time we were in high school, like we were doing a lot of the choreography. Another big memory, we were dancing at a wedding, and I think we were getting like paid, because I remember it being like, all right, make sure you know exactly what you're doing. And Paul Fox was in the group at the time, and we were doing something wild. It was like a Kaylee that had lines, but like we were in hard shoes. And so it was Paul in the middle, and then me and Rachel Ozar, and then I think Megan and Nellie were in the line. Nellie, I can't remember her last name. And Paul took a misstep and fell and took the whole line down. It was like all 5 of us fell to the ground. So that wasn't something that we could clean up real well, but I just remember it was the one time I had seen 5 people fall at once. Yeah, but it was really special. I mean, there were kids that some of the videos have come back up on Facebook or YouTube, and kids, they're all grown up with their own families now, and I just remember them. I saw one with Mary-Kate Martell and I can't remember the boy's name. There was a video where he had to have been like 3 though, and just up there doing the jig. Like so it did span across like all ages. Well, I think you were done once you were 18. Had a thing where like they felt that the older kids, which would have included me too, but like Paul, me, some of the older people, were getting too much like stage time. And so I thought that they did a cutoff of 18 to kind of give the younger kids more of a spotlight. So he was still in it. I feel he was 2 years older than me, so he was like 20. And that rule of ending when you're 18, I think, hit with me and Megan. We were the seniors for that group. I know that shortly in 97, when I joined, they had just broken off from O'Hare. So like the families that I started with, the reason they didn't have a teacher was because they had left that group, which is a school, obviously, but and then John took them on. The nursing homes were very sweet. I remember Independence Village was a regular place that had us. I felt like at the time a lot of my This would have been around the time I was like 16. My friends were doing like national honors and like all that, and like I did not have any time to donate my time or volunteer or anything. So I felt good about the nursing homes because they're so isolated from, even now, I mean, at any time. And they used to just light up when we came in there. And there was always that one person that like didn't like the noise and had to be like wheeled out because of the hard shoes. But it just felt like it was a way that I could contribute, and it was something I was already involved in. You know, I didn't have to take like extra time. And also you weren't too worried about messing up because they were just happy to see kids and probably have some music. I was raised very traditional music. Like, it was actually kind of funny because my mom has a PhD in musicology, and I don't know if she knew what a slip jig was. That's always my question, like, do you know what a slip jig is? And then you know if the person's really knowledgeable. But I do remember, what's his name? Matthew DeShetler. He played the bodrum, and I think Mars was also part of that too. I don't remember any language though. John taught us to count in Gaelic for our stretching, and that was to make sure that we did each stretch for 30 seconds. And so he would teach us a couple things like hello and goodbye and that kind of thing. I don't know if I'm saying them right, but Giagwitch means hello. And then Salanawalia means have a safe journey home. We never knew if we were like, is that goodbye? Like, do people really say all that for goodbye? So I don't know the shortened version. Gora Mahagath was thank you. Falsha is you're welcome. Konista du means how are you? And then Ta me domai is I am fine. I was always upset I couldn't learn how to say I am not fine. We didn't have that option, but those were the words. And then, yeah, I can still count in Gaelic. It's super weird what sticks with you. Shees means down, so that's when you go down into your stretch. And then it's ein, do, 3, catter, cuig, she, shacht, acht, ni, jet, einjeg, doeg, 3jeg, catterjeg, cuigjeg, and then sus means up. And another thing, everyone always used to say like tree, but really it's just 3. The guy that taught John had like an accent, so he would always try to throw in the accent. I was always correcting people. I'm like, it's just 3, just like English. I remember we did so many. I remember East Lansing Art Festival. That was always really crowded. I can't remember if we were regularly doing Alma or not. I feel like there was a parade too. Oh, Detroit probably. Detroit Irish Parade. I don't remember too much about the festivals. Did we do Renaissance Festival? I remember more of the nursing homes probably, and the private. There weren't a ton of weddings, but it was just that one wedding incident. I've not stopped dancing, like when I moved to Philly for a couple years and danced out there, so I feel like I've just always done the festivals, so they just kind of blend in. Yeah, I do remember at least driving to Saline. I don't remember at all. I know my dad made my outfit. He made 2 of my outfits. That's the only thing I can think about we would have needed money for. Amanda Martell's grandmother used to sew or crochet the lace that we had on our collars, and I remember I got her last lace project for one of my dresses, and I just was so happy because her lace was always like soft, and the only lace you could find at like Joann's was like that hard doily type thing that you put your cup on, you know. So I don't remember us. I know we did get paid like for though at least that one wedding, because I remember in my mind, falling was a big deal because that was a paid gig. But I don't remember much of what we spent money on because we all had our own outfits and this was before they got blingy. They weren't I think Nellie had the first sparkly solo dress I had seen. But when things did start to get sparkly, I know we tried to keep it more traditional looking. Because I don't think I ever wore my solo dress for IDCL. It was just the ones that my dad made. So I don't know what you would have done if you didn't have a tailor for a parent. So I know my dad used like simplicity patterns. I think one of them was like a sock hop type dress. Because I know that with like the Martells and the McCartneys, they usually had dresses from the previous kid that they could do hand-me-downs. But then when people started wearing solo dresses, I know Peggy didn't want the people that were wearing those to kind of outshine the people that were still wearing the velvet. So around the time when I was 16 and I did get mine, I had to get another one made, velvet dress for Lansing Irish Dance Company. Because this dress that's sitting here that was also mine, Jean Butler had, in one of her performances, had like an off the shoulder, but it had a lace cover up for the skin part. And I loved that off the shoulder look. And after my dad made it, Peggy said I couldn't wear it. So I did get a chance to wear it to some other things, but I do remember being disappointed that we weren't going with the flow of Riverdance because things were getting sparkly, and I remember just really liking the different outfits they had in the shows that came out, but yeah, we wanted to keep the traditional look. Yeah, and then later on, I had Irish dance involved in my college, like it was one of my college courses for the dance program, and in my master's thesis. And the whole glamour, sparkle, showing off skin thing is just like exactly the opposite of what the culture was. So later on, after I was too old to be part of the group, I did have an appreciation for the older, less glamorous style. But at the time, I wished that we could be like Jean Butler, you know. That's kind of a blur to me. I was already overbooked as it was as a teenager, but I remember like, well, when did I broke my foot during one of the things. I just remember like March being so crazy that I didn't know which performance we were at. It was like my dad would just take us and I would get up there and perform. Like the day of St. Patty's Day, if it was on a weekday, we would be in schools all day. And then usually every weekend, like I didn't really have too much of a social life. But the cool thing is that like IDCL was sort of like social life. We would hang out after the performances, like they were my friends. And even now, like coming back into Lansing and doing it, it's just like time didn't pass, you know. The people that are left over from that era of my life are still very close to me, and I do remember March just flying by. When I was a part of it, I feel like we were always really cool with each other. We would choreograph and try to kind of help the younger kids. And so much of it was similar. I only can remember of a couple steps that were like specific to IDCL because a lot of what we were doing was our school steps. So I do remember because when I initially started, that John thought I was an intermediate, I never learned the beginning reel. So I did, by the time I was in high school, 16 or so, I did have to learn the beginning steps to show the younger kids what to do. Because I also remember that there was a point where we had, some of the older kids had all kind of moved up, like we were all wearing a solo dress, and nobody wanted to do like the easier parts. And so we had to cooperate, like, okay, well, you do the soft shoe part in this dance, and then you can do the hard shoe part in this dance, because like everyone wanted to do the showier parts. Because every song had like 2 or 3 parts. And eventually, I remember us kind of switching it up and doing, some of the older kids doing like the slower, more boring parts, and then the little kids coming through at the end and like pushing us off stage. So we were pretty cool with each other. Just when it came to like figuring out who was doing what part, there was a little tension there. I think it was more, I tend to notice things before they're spoken, you know. I think it was just sort of like some nonverbal kind of tension about that. But other than that, we got along really well. I know my dad was involved in some web stuff because he did a lot for Great Lakes Fesh also. And actually, by the time we were with John, I would say, again, when I was in high school, I don't think Mary was doing choreography very much. It was us. She may have been doing some of the younger kids and some of the like Tabash and Boiler Breakfast, some of those dances that don't really change. But I remember us trying to figure out Warriors, the Green. I know we did some, Nellie and Megan did some amazing choreography for Riverdance. And Paul was doing a lot at that point too. We had a senior dance that was specific to us. I still cry when I see it. It was me and Megan. And we had sort of a solo-ish part in Tabash that always still gets me. Like, and that was fun. I remember us doing choreography for that. But that was a big deal when you were a senior. And I got like this cute, Peggy got me a little clear shamrock dish that I still have. You would always, everyone when you graduated, you would get like a piece of glass similar to like Aractus. Not the big things, but you know, it was that company.
Galway.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I still have that. Oh my gosh, I don't remember the song. It's on Facebook. It was a reel. I do remember, I think we kind of did similar things for the end of Tabash in our solo. I remember it being, there was a lot going on. We didn't have a lot of time to work on it. And so we kind of took some choreography from the other dance. But in the video, I have this dress, and my dad had done the dress, and the lace was from Martell, and I crocheted a heart, and it's like slightly crooked. And every time I see the video, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember, I had done the crochet myself, and then at Gaylord, Mary wanted to bling it. Bling back then was like plastic. I think there were little plastic gems that she put on there. And so at that point, I feel like she always wanted to be working on some kind of costume or something. But yeah, that's all I can remember about that dance is like, oh my gosh, why did I wear the crooked heart? I asked my sister. My sister was part of the group for 2 to 4 years. I don't remember. There were some videos that were posted on YouTube, and she said that the one that brought back the most memories is one where they messed up the, what was the thing where you had the chain? It was like a circle, and then you had to put people through, and then you spin around, and then you put 2 people through, and it's a certain kind of chain. But she said they never got that, and they just continued to keep trying and putting it in the dance. So there's a video of her and her group messing up really bad. I'm pretty sure everybody, when I first started, they were all transitioning from O'Hare to Heinzman. And I don't ever remember there being anyone who wasn't taking lessons. I do remember, I can't think of specific dancers, but I remember a parent, because I did a little bit of private lessons with some of the Heinzman kids who were also part of IDCL. And one parent had said that she liked it because it was an alternative to competing. And it gave them something to look forward to and something to like do instead of just the class. Because once you've started competing, sometimes if you stop, it's kind of like, well, what am I prepping for? What do I have to look forward for? And that was always nice that you could be part of it and you didn't have to compete. Which I also think it's still a very important thing today to have performing groups, because competition is so different and not necessary, in my opinion. We were all, like, I feel like my little group of people that were my age, I feel like everybody competed and everyone did class. So, like, there was a time where I forgot my school dress for a fesh, and there were like 3 options of people I could borrow who were just there. So we did everything. I know some of the younger kids didn't compete, but my group, if you were going to a fesh, you were going to see your people there, whether it was class or the group. It's such an important experience of like family, you know, like even I would say I didn't feel sort of the absence of having a social group because I was so busy, because my social group was Irish dance. And I actually did my thesis for grad school about the social connection of Irish dance. For me, it was a way for me to feel socially connected through the music and the group dancing. If I didn't have the Kayleys and the performance dances, I don't know if it would have had the impact, just Irish dancing alone, that it did. So yeah, those types of performance experiences and the group part of it is very important, I think. All 4 McCartney kids, I think all of the Martells were still part of it. Paul Fox, Rachel Ozar, I'm blanking on Nellie's last name. Nellie. The Burks. I can't remember the kids' names. There were 2 daughters. Tim Burke was their dad. Megan and Matthew DeShetler. And then there were 2 girls that I used to give lessons to. Emily and Meg. I think it was another Megan. I can't remember their last name. Oh, and the McCormicks. Katie and Shannon. And I don't know if their brother did it too. Yeah, I think that was about everybody at the time.